What is up, Fanatics? It's 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means another episode of Home Theater Fanatics Live. Tonight is episode 169, and tonight we're welcoming back an old friend, Jack from KEF. It's been so long since I've seen you.
It has. It seems like it's been 3 weeks or so.
It's been so many weeks. But you're back for good reason.
Yeah.
So here's the return of the shark.
That's right. That's right.
Who was jumping the shark? Was that Fonzie?
That was the Fonz. It was, yeah.
Fonzarelli,
and deservedly so, might I add. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the kind of the story was, Jack was going to come on a few weeks ago, just before the LS60 came out, and this was going to be part of the reveal, right? So
yeah,
things changed a little bit, and the release date just pushed just beyond that episode. So we decided that we would just reschedule after everything and bring you back so we could talk a little bit about the LS60 Wireless and all of the good stuff that's going on there. But I think before we get started, though, just maybe a couple of minutes on who you are for the folks that are not initiated.
Cool. Okay, so my name is Jack Sharkey, and I'm a senior technical engineer at KEF America. So, right, the U.S. or the North American group for KEF. So I do marketing, I do technical support and training and things like that. I've been in the business for a while, and I've been with KEF for a while. I'm there about 14 or 15 years now and loving the ride. So that's a little bit about me, right? And although I've been at KEF for that long, it's sort of a drop in the bucket because we're in our 60th year, really technically, right, our 61st year of existence. And, we were founded in 1961 by a BBC engineer by the name of Raymond Cook out in Maidstone, which is, I guess, between London and Brighton, over in that area of England. And we've been doing high-end sort of, innovative designs and research and all into speakers. And what's really fun for our 60th anniversary product, I think we've really kind of topped ourselves this time. And I do have to mention, right, when I was here, 3 weeks ago, I was chomping at the bit. It was all in my willpower to not mention it because I knew it was coming. I think I visited with y'all on Tuesday, and the announcement was Wednesday at 2:00 Eastern time, 2 a.m. Right in the morning, because we, got to catch the European time zones and things like that, and you guys have always been, real good friends of ours, and I really do enjoy the show. And it was just like, oh, I can't believe that we're going to miss it by not even 48 hours. It was like 36 hours, but
well,
so be it.
You have to be careful, though. I mean, we got to follow the rules, because if there's one thing that I've learned, the marketing folks and things that are not yet released, you don't mess with that.
No,
come and chop off some fingers.
Yeah, it's like we know this stuff for months in advance. We know all about it, and I have to get like the training together and do things, and I've got to learn about it and all. But you can't talk about it. And in the digital age, it's really hard to keep a corporate secret anymore. I mean, really, really hard. So, as you get closer and closer to the time that you're releasing, you're always waiting to, open Facebook up and see a picture of something or whatever. And especially, we're around the globe, so the chances of that happening are even higher. But mum's the word, and that's the way it's got to be, right?
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job. Here's my funny story, and so for everybody out there, we're going to talk a little bit about the technicalities of the LS60 and what it is. There are a handful of reviews out there already, so if you really want to get deep into it, you can go check those out. And so my funny story, at least it was funny to me, is about one of the reviews. So there's a lady, I'm not going to call out any names, but she is super awesome, and she works with KEF as part of the marketing team. And you probably know who I'm talking about, because we've spoken about her before, and she's great. And so when the 60 dropped, I had been dropped off of the announcement list, right? And I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We made some changes and some names got messed up and whatever. So, but here, let me get this to you." Blah blah blah. So, we talked about it a little bit. And we were emailing back and forth, and I'm all like, "Hey, what about this John Darko video that's out there already? Release date video?" And she's like, "That was KEF EU."
Yeah.
Just the way she said it, that was KEF EU.
Yeah.
But no, so I know a lot of people out there don't get kind of the back end view into all of the machinations that go into building a product, designing it, releasing it, the marketing, and all I mean, this huge machine, and there's so much that goes into it. I mean, it's really amazing. And maybe we'll jump into some of the stories that you were going to tell about how this thing came to be, right?
Sure.
And I find this really, really interesting, right? So, okay, really super fast. What is the LS60?
So the LS60 is basically an active wireless, high fidelity music system centered around obviously UniQ, and then also our UniCore, which we'll talk a little bit about. It's a freestanding. It's the next step in our evolution of hi-fi as far as we truly are looking at this as the future of hi-fi. And and to speak to the things that happen when we're getting ready for a launch, right? There's so many moving parts. We have to make sure that all the dealers and everybody is prepared and has their material. We have to make sure we have stock. We make sure that our salespeople and our service people are all up to speed and they know what's going on. So you can't do dribs and drabs. You have to get everybody ready for a particular date. And then when that date comes, hopefully we've all done our jobs correctly and everybody's ready to go. And there we go. And then when you're doing something as seriously groundbreaking, certainly for us, this is a whole new paradigm shift for us, and I do believe it's that way in the industry as well. The stakes are even higher, and you've got to get it right. And listen, we're in challenging times all the way around, just with logistics and shipping and this, that, and the other thing.
It's crazy right now.
Yeah, so it's, I'm real happy it's launched and the launch went really flawlessly. We've got some other cool things coming up over the summertime, but yeah. So anyway, let me get back into LS60, right? So it is the next step from LS50 Wireless 2 and all, but it's a different step as well. And in fact, this is our first from the ground up, completely KEF designed, out of thin air design, active music, wireless music system that we've put together. Because back in 1980, we did the KM1, which if I should have probably had a picture of that for you, but it's in the museum. It was an active studio monitor that we built for the BBC, but it had quad electronics in it. So it wasn't quite ours, right? It was ours, but it was somebody else's electronics.
Sure.
Then you look at LS50 and LS50 Wireless and LS50 Wireless 2. That basically was the LS50 passive that we stepped
Shoved
up
a whole bunch of guts into.
Yeah, right. Put all these little things in there, a couple of chips, a couple of transistors, a few power supplies. Yeah, a little bit, right?
Now, that technology stack was groundbreaking when it came out. I was like, they did what? Oh my God.
Oh, I was shocked because I had heard about, I'd heard about it very early on. And it was, when I first heard about the concept, I was like, really? Yeah. That's what's going to happen? And then of course it happened, and it happened really cleanly and elegantly. It was beautifully done. And now we have the LS60, which is, totally from the ground up new design. Of course, it has the UniQ in it and all, but it's the first one that we've done from scratch. It's all of our electronics. Our engineers designed the amplifiers and the DSP and the voicing and everything. And it's a lot of all the technology that we've been really working on for the last 10 years or so. This is kind of the culmination of all that technology, which is in and of itself really an amazing thing. So for those of you who are familiar with the box by now, with the LS60 Wireless, right? It's very similar to the Blade architecture in terms of, it's a point source, which means, right, we have the UniQ there in the center, and then it's surrounded by 4 LF drivers, which gives us a single apparent source, as point source, where basically what you're looking at there is the LF drivers are at the acoustic center of the UniQ, where the tweeter is the acoustic center of the mid-range. It's all kind of, put in this one perfect geometric spot. So then when you're listening to it, the timing is right, the diffraction, the phasing, everything is right, and you get this really beautiful sound stage. And
so for people out there really are 4 bass drivers on each tower, right? There's 2 on each side.
And don't be fooled by the size of the drivers. It's just a 5-inch bass driver, but it's unicore. And so if you're familiar with KC62, and just give you a little bit of background on that, the KC62 is unicore, where basically what we've done is we've put the 2 drivers together and their motor systems together so that one has a little bit bigger voice coil than the other, and they move this way, inside and out, which allowed us to push them together much closer. The timing and just, the electrical engineering involved in doing that, because remember, these things have to be, phase perfect. They have to be time aligned. They have to do everything exactly the same, but you got one that's smaller than the other. So there was a lot of work that went into that. But even though KC62 came to market first, I think we're about 1.5 years now or thereabouts that we've had KC62. It was actually designed for LS60. So it just, it takes a long time to do something as big as this project is. So in the meantime, we were able to get Unicore to market in the KC62, but it was really designed, I think we're going back 5 or 6 years, possibly at this point, maybe even a little longer, where we knew that we were working on this. But the key to the LS60 and its performance is in how thin it is, the profile, right? So the happy result of that is it really looks sharp, and it's not imposing, and it'll fit in almost any room, right? It'll fit in there quite nicely. To give you an idea of size, it's roughly the size of an R5. It's obviously a lot thinner, and it's a little bit deeper, but it kind of gives you in the ballpark of where it's sitting. But the reason why we need it as thin as we do is to reduce diffraction. The closer that you have the side of your cabinet to the speaker, or conversely, the closer the loudspeaker is to the side of the cabinet, the less diffraction you have. The less diffraction you have, the more pure the soundstage and the delivery is. So that was key. And we, if we had put just 2 drivers, say KF92 drivers in there, this thing becomes very wide at this point.
Right. Yep.
And so by doing the Unicore, it's actually thinner than an iPhone 12 Pro.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
So this is the 13, but it's about almost exactly the same size. So.
About as wide as that. Yeah. It's probably the best way to go. That's what you're talking about. So that profile, listen, it's real sharp looking. There's no getting around that. But there's a technical reason for it too. So I always like to say that this is a case where form has totally followed function. Same with Blade, right? It's like, what's the function first, and then let's sculpt this into this other aesthetically pleasing piece of equipment, right? So
yeah, so let me just call out one thing that I always think about when I think about this speaker in particular, right? And as products come out, there's always a product that leads to the next product, but this thing is the culmination of a staggering amount, a gargantuan amount of R&D and development work over, I guess, literally the last 60 years. Because think about it. So you've got the UniQ driver on the front, and that's been in development pretty much since the beginning, right?
It's not, UniQ itself, we actually probably got whole hog on it in about 1984, 1985. We released it in 1988. Yeah.
And so you've got that's been in development for a very long time. Then you've got the Unicore, which is the bass driver technology, and like you said, it was in the KC62 before. So you can't have this speaker without having that technology,
right?
The amplification stack, the technology stack, all the wireless technology that has been developed over time in a number of different models, right? That leads up to this. The single apparent, what's the term? Single apparent
source, right? So
right?
what that, in a nutshell for the audience, what that means is all the frequencies, low frequencies on the side and the mids and the highs are all coming from the same acoustic place in
Hmm.
space. So that means they're all time aligned throughout. And that's why you can kind of sit anywhere in the room. You get a nice wide dispersion because it's coming from a single apparent
It's
place.
the holy grail for soundstage.
It
I mean,
really is. It
it really
really
is.
is. Yeah.
And to get that technology in this speaker, you have to go back to the blades. I don't know if it
Hmm.
was used in anything before the blades, but if you think
No.
about it, the blades are like what, 30, 40, $50,000 pair of speakers, depending on which one and when you
Right.
bought
You're
them.
looking at 35 for the Blade Meta. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that technology has come down from a price point way up there to $7,000 for the pair of these, which includes your amplification,
Yeah.
everything, right? So you can't have these speakers without those first being made. So it's, I mean, hundreds of dominoes had to fall over before this last domino for the LS60 wireless could make it, right? And this is
Yeah.
meta technology too.
It's got meta technology in it. It has the shadow flare in it and it's actually curved along the side for
Mhm.
reducing diffraction. It has the 12th generation UniQ that's in there is like a redesigned UniQ that has all kind of different isolation technology in it. It has the MAT, the metamaterial, which is going to eliminate all your backwave energy. It's just a phenomenal thing. I mean, literally, when we designed Meta, there was a distortion or a turbulence that we heard in the Tangerine waveguide that had been being covered up by the backwave. So now we get rid of the backwave and we hear that. Well, wait a minute, that's no good. So then you change a little bit of the design, the tweeter damper, the tweeter damper gap to kind of reduce some of those reflections and
Mhm.
distortions in there, right? So so there's like micro dominoes that fall as well as the big ones, right? Because everything is a system that we put together. So yeah, that's what's so exciting with this. I mean, even to the way that we're porting the heat, because there's 700 watts of power. You've got a separate amplifier for your low frequencies, for your mids, and for your highs. Is in each one also has a separate DAC
Mhm.
in there. So you have it in each cabinet. You've got 3 DACs in each cabinet, lows, mids, and highs, and all this electronics is going to make heat. So right, you can't be having fans running around and different things, and you still want to look right. So we developed a way to use convection. And that's why you see in the bottom of the cabinet, it's lifted a little bit around the plinth.
Right.
Well, that's to draw cool air in from the floor and run it up through the electronics and then out the top. So, the bottom third of the cabinet is electronics. It's power supplies. It's,
Yep.
all this other stuff. And it's an amazing feat of, let alone the electronics, the miniaturization to put it all in there is pretty spectacular as well.
Yeah. And, you know, it, let me collect my thoughts. Let me say this the right way for everyone. So when I think about two-channel technology, listening to music, I like to consume my music using gear in a very particular way, right? So I don't consider myself to be a super classical two-channel audiophile, right? For
Hmm.
me, what gets me really excited is when there is a piece of technology that speaks to me that allows me to experience music in that really high quality way, but gives me all of these capabilities that I want. And in the past, that really was all that technology stack was kind of in the streamer, right? Or maybe in your
Right.
integrated, right? And that's where I found all that stuff. But over the last 5 years or so, I found that has really migrated into this kind of all-in-one wireless speaker that allows you to have not you're not dealing with your $50 thing you order from Amazon that's got amps, right, and you Bluetooth to it, right? This is
Right.
high-end sound. I mean, this is top dollar. I mean, you're not playing around with this stuff, but it's got the technology in it that, when I use it, I'm like, oh, this is what I want my gear to do.
Right. And that's why we literally, we're looking at this. This is our vision of the future of hi-fi, because you've got HDMI, eARC, you've got good old fashioned left and right auxiliary RCA jacks, you've got Toslink, you've got
Mhm.
coax, right? And you've got streaming up to DSD resolution. It's a MQA renderer.
Right. Yep.
You've got everything that you want to possibly do in there. So it's all the convenience that consumers, that we all expect today, all right? But we're now doing it on a scale that we're getting the full width and breadth of the magic of the music, which is the whole point. And I say music, but it could be the movie that you're listening to or whatever. But yeah, you're exactly right. What we've done is we've taken all these wonderful toys and bells and whistles and all these things that in the last 10 or 15 years we've come to expect out of our technology, but we've placed it in a really true audiophile environment, so that when you sit down and you listen to music, you're hearing it literally the way it was recorded, the way it was meant to be meant to be heard. Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of KEF fans out there, but one thing that I'll say to everybody that's a KEF fan, and folks that aren't a KEF fan, you should be. I think a lot of people have heard. I think a lot of people have heard KEF speakers that are not kind of the top of the line. I don't know that a lot of people have heard the Blades before. And
right.
What I think is really cool about this is because, if folks can have a chance to go listen to Blades, it really is, the kind of the next step up, right? I really enjoy that sound, and it gives you a bit more of that high-end audio purity that you might not get out of, something that's got your subwoofer sitting on the floor over here and you're trying to time line, right? It really does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference. Yeah.
And so, if people enjoy the KEF sound, that's, I don't know. I haven't had enough time with the Muons to say, oh, that's even better. I've only heard them played like once and it was not in a great environment, but the Blades are just tops for me. And to be able to take that Blade experience and stack all this technology and make it absolutely accessible to, I don't know if I want to call it the masses, because $7,000 is still pretty pricey. I mean, it's not everybody's going to drop $7,000, but it is so much more accessible now than it ever used to be. To have this type of experience with sound is outstanding. I mean, it's a big deal.
It is a huge deal. And when you think about it, right, at the price point, what you're getting in here are, DACs and a DSP that are designed specifically for these drivers, right? Which is good luck shopping and doing it. I'm not saying you can't do it. What I'm saying is good luck getting it done, right? You have amplifiers that are designed specifically for these drivers, for the cabinet volume, for the excursion of the speakers, the whole bit. Plus, the limiting that we do in the bass drivers to control their response, right? And the whole bit. Then they're all in the acoustic center of each other. They're in that single apparent source. So you've got all of that technology and everything all put together at the price range. I kind of defy you to do something that would come close to this in performance if you were to get subwoofers and amplifiers and DACs and streamers and preamps and all that stuff.
And do it totally right.
Right. So at that point, you can say, well, yeah, okay, that's a lot of money. But if you're, when you get to the stage in your journey, which we all tend to do musically, when we kind of take this on, this is where we all want to go. And at this point, you're getting really, in a sense, a bargain. Well, it's kind of like, Jack, you're spending $7,000 for a bargain. Yeah, totally you are, because look what you're getting in here. So there's another way to look at that, which makes perfect sense to me. And as a guy who was never really capable of being able to drop serious coin on the system of my dreams, to me, this becomes real attainable. It becomes almost a no-brainer at that point. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, what does this replace, right? You don't have to buy your streamer. You don't have to buy your amplifiers. You don't have to buy your DAC. You just buy this. I mean, literally, this.
Right, and
you buy these
high end.
Yeah, and you're done.
Yeah, and it's great because it's not a middle of the road system. It's certainly not a personal data assistant or anything like that, right? It's a full blown audiophile music system. So we're really super excited about it. From just the initial response has been awesome, and it's always really delightful when you send your kids out there for the first day to see what people are how they're going to respond to them when they're all dressed up and pretty and nice and looking, and people go like, yes, very nice job. It's exciting. And that's kind of what we're riding on right now. So we're loving it. And, stock is not going to be an issue for us, and we'll roll things out over the summer to get to different colors over the summer. By August and late July, you're going to be, able to just go and get them right from your dealers and stuff, and which is right on line of what we do when we launch a product. So we're real happy.
That's awesome. Before we continue on, let me just take a moment to say hi, everybody, to everybody that's watching, that's commenting. We have a bunch of viewers that aren't commenting, and I would recommend, please drop your questions in, comment, say hi. And if you're not subscribed yet to the channel, you're probably watching this on YouTube. Click the button, please. But Jamie's here with us. We got AA, Hi-Fi Haven, Bass Therapy is with us, and Bass Therapy made a comment that I thought was really good. Yeah, man, Giles just looks good.
It's funny because I was actually going to say that earlier, but I didn't know how appropriate it would be for me to say that. So I'm actually glad that somebody brought that up.
It's always appropriate for anyone to say that I look good. I any chance I get, I'll take it. I'm okay. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
Kevin's here with us. Kevin Sorkin. Oh gosh, Bass Therapy. He is a self-proclaimed KEF fanboy all day.
Well, I love that.
I like that
too.
So, but for everybody out there that's out there watching, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're just joining us, we're talking a little bit about the KEF LS60, which is the new 60th anniversary product. That's where the 60 comes from, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And we're going to keep this episode a little bit shorter than usual, but I wanted to ask, are there any interesting stories about the genesis of this unit that we can chat about? Anything that might be interesting? I think it was pretty interesting with the way that the sub piece was actually developed, for this, and then came out in another product before this one, right? Anything else out there that we might want to clue folks in about?
Well, the Unicore definitely, that we spoke about, and then the fact that I think that this is not just an extension of LS60 Wireless. It's a brand new product. So in terms of an anecdote, I think really the best anecdote would be the fact that the KC62 was really a result of the design for LS60, and then the fact you're going all the way back that, we did products like this with the KM1 back in 1980 or thereabouts. So, that's really it. In terms of the engineering anecdotes, all those little things, the product's a little new to get some really good stories, but that's basically where we're at with this. But, I think it's important to kind of spin back to Blade. And I just love to kind of tell this story that, Blade was basically a result of our engineers saying, if we could design the perfect loudspeaker for our UniQ, forget cost, forget what it looked like, forget anything. What would it look like literally in a pub on a napkin is how this came about. Mm-hmm. Then they go in on the computer and they start doing the finite element analysis and coming up with and then Blade, for all intents and purposes, that's the way it came out. You do a little shaping here, you do a little shaping there, and it comes into this, this beautiful thing that when it was first released, people were like, really? What's that all about? What's going on there with it? Because it was so different, right?
Yeah.
And then, we were never going to release Blade as a product. It was basically a way for us to say, to show the engineering world what we were capable of doing. And then we showed it at Munich in 2009, I think. And people were just like, well, so you're going to sell this, right? And, we actually had to go back to the drawing board.
You're like, yeah, we are.
We had planned on it all along. Yeah, by all means. And then, I had to go back and sort of do some restructuring because it's not an easy thing to build, right? And that's kind of also what happened here with this. So with LS60, it's not baby Blade in the sense, because it has the symmetrical design of the drivers and stuff. This is very
Right.
reminiscent of Blade. But this was another way for us to say, how can we take this, all of this cool technology that we've come up with, like we alluded to earlier, and put it in a smaller box that we can get into, you know, sort of almost any living space. And, you know, it's just kind of really neat to be a fly on the wall to watch engineer, because we have some rock star engineers working for, I mean, these guys are just serious guys. And what they're doing, and this is what they're working on here, and you know, and even you hear the first responses of LS60. To be frankly, some people are like, well, it's a little bit different than what I, you know, would expect, and then you come to find out 2 or 3 years later, it becomes, you know, the norm. You know, nobody to this day, you know, at this point looks at Blade and goes, really? I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but when it first came out, people were a little shocked, and it's kind of the same way here, and I love that, because that means that we're onto something, that we've got something good cooking, you know.
So, you know, one of the questions that somebody posted before was, you know, what's the fate of the LS50? Is it still going to hang around? I assume that,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And so that I think what would be really cool is, and this is a product that I would really like to have, would be the middle of the road version of the LS60 and the LS50. So the LS55, which would be, you know, a bookshelf format
Right.
with just 2 of the bass drivers on the side.
You
What I
know,
mean?
and I'm sure the engineers are thinking about that, because at this point you wonder, where's the diminishing returns in terms of the size of the drivers and all. But
Mhm.
hey, I don't know. There's a lot of alchemy that goes on, you know, in our engineering labs. But, you know, certainly LS50 Wireless 2 is not going anywhere. It's a tremendous product for us. It sits in the market exactly where we want it to sit. It's a really refined technology and all. So, you know, separate LS50 Wireless and LS60 Wireless from each other, because they're really 2 different products serving 2 different, you know,
Mhm.
aspects of the market, by all means.
Right on, right on. Great. Well, Jack, I think we're going to call this one tonight. So I want to say thanks again for coming on and, you know, giving us a bit of the history of how the product came around, and, you know, all the different dominoes that it took to put together to build this product, and, you know, the years of R&D that went into creating this. I mean, monster. I mean, I don't want to call it a Frankenstein, because it's not. It's a beautiful thing, but, you know, it's taken all these bits and pieces to come together to
Yeah.
create the whole, which is awesome. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with us tonight.
It's always my pleasure, Giles. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the time, and anytime I get a chance to talk to you all about this stuff, it's you know, I'm here and ready for you. Who knows? Maybe I'll see you in another month or so. With the way things are going, you never know.
Maybe there'll be something new. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? All right, Jack. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So long now. Good night, everybody. Appreciate
Take
you.
care.